Hey everybody, I'm going to give you my first update on this Executone P13 that I'm going to convert into a Fender Deluxe Model 5C3. So you'll see here that I've ripped out the entire guts here, and you see that I've got 6 tube sockets. These are octal, 8-pin octal tubes. And I've got 6 of those. And then I have an electrolytic cap which I need to unmount. I have an indicator lamp here, dial light, and then I've got a fuse holder here, and I'm going to need to get this stuff out of here. These are all the old terminal connectors in the back of the unit, you can see right there, and I'll have to drill those out. I found some pretty cool components while I was digging this thing out. So I found these Sprague cool ohms, and this looks like it's a 5 watt 40,000 K resistor. I can't imagine it being that high, but 40K. That's interesting. And found a bunch of these old bumblebees, which I haven't tested yet. I think these are called bumblebees, but they're old, and I'm going to save those. And found a bunch of old electrolytics, which I haven't tested yet, but I'll throw them on my ESR meter and see what they look like. And I got a couple of old resistors in here that I've saved. And then, of course, I've found some other things. Like, for example, in the bottom of this thing, they had this little can with these resistors in it. And I can't imagine why they would want to isolate these in this particular unit, but they did. So we'll see how that goes. And I've got some selector switches, which I may be able to use for an ohm selector switch. Got some mica caps here, you'll see, and really old stuff. So I've got some pots. I don't know if they're what value they are, but we'll figure that out later. Really, what I'm up to at this point is the transformer. So that's what I want to show you now, is the transformer. So I've taken the bell housing off of one side of the primary transformer. It's right here. And the reason why I did that is because these wires are stiff as a board. They don't bend at all, and I'm really afraid to put this back into the unit in its current state. So I think what I'm going to do is carefully cut these wires right around here and replace them with heat shrink tube. And then, of course, when I'm done, this goes over it, and then the housing goes back on. I just don't think I'm going to have a successful restore if I leave these wires here. These things are just stiff as a board. They're really, really old. So I'm going to replace these wires, be really careful. I'm not going to disturb anything in this side of the transformer, right? And we're going to just be really careful. And then when I get through this side, this is your 6.3 volt filament, and this is your 5 volt. Which goes to your rectifier tube. And then when I get done, I'll flip it over, and I'm going to have to do the same thing on this side. These things are a little more pliable, but they just don't feel good. So I'm going to replace this stuff and get it done right. And while I have it out, of course, I'll paint this and get the rust off of it and make it look real nice, because it is going to be on the top of the chassis. So I want it to look nice. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to work on this transformer, and then I'll take a look at this output transformer, which I removed. This was for the speakers and stuff. I want to see what this is all about. There's a lot of wires coming out of here, so I'm not exactly sure I can reuse it, but it's always good to have a transformer. I'll see what it's about. I don't know if it's throwing out 6.3 filament. I have no idea. So I'll have to do some investigation there. So that's where we are. So my Fender Deluxe 5C3 has 5 tubes. So I have a 6S C7 here, a 6S C7 here, and these are split plates, right? Here's a plate here, and here's a plate here, here and here. Then I've got some 6V6 GTs. You saw that on the other Fender amp I worked on. And then I've got my rectifier tube. So I've got 5 tubes in this. I've got 6 tube sockets. So that's a pretty good donor match for me, and that's where I am. So let me go work on this transformer, and I'll show you what it looks like before I put the cover back on. One thing I want to show you is I've got these wires now soldered in, right? And I'm going to put this heat shrink tube over it. You'll see here that this insulation just moves. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but it's really, really loose here. So I'm going to make sure I do that. But the thing I really want to show you is these wires. When you strip these wires back, they have a black coating on them. And I had this in the night amp that I just restored as well. When you strip these wires back, they all have to be sanded. So I'm just using an emery board here, and getting some copper that I could solder to, basically. And they all have that black coating. I'm not sure if that's something that was done in the 60s or in the 50s or whatever. Maybe if someone knows, they could tell me. But all the copper wires have that coating on it. I don't think it's oxidation. It feels like it's something that was applied in the factory, possibly because the wires are cloth, and you know, maybe it was used to ensure that there was no issue. I don't know. Anyway, when you strip these wires back, you gotta sand them down so you get something to solder to. So that's where I am. So I'm going to keep working here, and I'll get those those heat shrinks all bundled in nice, and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. I'll be back. Alright, I've got my wires all heat shrinked nicely. Okay, no problems. This is my center tap for my 6.3 volt. I've got them all twisted, so now the next step is going to be to strip these ends off and make sure I've got continuity. So let me go do that, and I'll show you that process. Okay, we're going to measure the resistance on these wires that I just installed. Now, one thing I want to show you here, this is the center tap for the 6.3 volt filament. I put a piece of blue shrink wrap tube so I know which one it is. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go from the center tap to one side. Let's see what we get. So it looks like we're getting 0.2 ohms. That's good. So now we're going to take the lead off of the one side and go to the other. And I've got 0.1 or 2 right there. Now I'm going to take the lead off of the center tap and go directly across the coil. And I'm fluctuating between 0.2 and 0.3. I know I'm good there. Okay. Let's check the 5 volt winding, which is the yellow wire. So we'll connect this side here, and we'll connect this side here. And I'm getting 0.3 on the 5 volt winding. So I know that my connections are good. A little work I did here was good, and there's no problems. So next step is going to be to clean up this bell housing right here. Get this thing in good shape. Give it a nice shot of paint. And we're going to put that protective piece of paper back on to prevent it from shorting out, and then we're going to be good. So that's where we are. So let me stop this here. This is the piece of paper they give you. I may put a piece of plastic or something here instead. We'll see. Anyway, that's going to be where I am now, working on this. Once I get this done, I'm also going to pull this side out. So I'm going to do that now off camera. You get the idea. And then we'll have our transformer, and I can give it some paint to protect it, and it'll look nice. So that's where we are with our transformer, folks. This is Ron. I'll come back when the transformer is all done and when I start building it. So I'm going to publish this video now. So just wanted to give you an idea of where I am. This is Ron. Thanks.